The U.S. wanted to imperialize Panama because they felt we had an opportunity to minimize the time it took for ships to travel around South America, and it would be a more efficient way to trade.
And that it would make us more money in the long run.
Only part of Colombia, but when the United States decided they wanted to build the canal, they had to separate what is now Panama from Colombia. The U.S. had a revolution and used military force to get Panama as its own country. They then bought the rights to build the Panama Canal from a French company who also had like the same plans. The Panama Canal was built to connect the Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean. It is a waterway used to like shorten the distance ships have to travel, so they don't have to go all the way around South America. And the Panama Canal was originally the original idea to have the Panama Canal built was to show U.S. power.
The involvement of the U.S. in Panama affected Panamanians both negatively and positively. Some positive effects on Panama from the involvement of the U.S. was that when they first were involved in Panama in 1903, they were able to help Panama gain their independence from Spain. And the U.S. protected Panama and provided them with aid. The U.S. started to get more involved with Panama and was involved in their foreign affairs and affairs in the nation. And the immigrants that came to the country for work on the canal added a variety of Panamanians' racial, ethnic, and cultural makeup. And also brought more jobs to the country. The Hull-Faro Treaty was created because the Panamanians felt as though they should be treated better, so Armado and Arnulfo governed the country and strengthened the police force. The treaty was that every year that the U.S. used the canal zone, they had to pay more money to Panama. And in 1978, the Torrijos-Carter treaties were established to return 2/3 of the canal back to Panama and increase their revenue. And in 1999, Panama gains control of the whole canal from the U.S. And some negative effects that the U.S.'s involvement on Panama were that with this new treaty, it gave the U.S. more control over the canal than originally planned in the treaty the Colombians rejected. And while working on the canal, many people suffered from malaria and yellow fever and died. And in the canal zone controlled by the U.S., Panamanian students tried to raise a Panamanian flag, which to the Americans showed that Panamanians didn't really want America there anymore, which resulted in a riot after the Americans took it down, and many were killed from both sides. The political cartoon, The Man Who Can Make the Dirt Fly, shows that Roosevelt had all the power over the people of Panama and that he took advantage of them and made them work for him to get this done. And that is because he's portrayed so large. And also, it shows that he is shoveling or removing his problems out of the way so that he can get this done, and that it was his project to start, so he was going to be the one to finish it. Since the Panama Canal is such an easy and quick way to transport goods between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, many more vessels have started to use it. But these vessel sizes have started to grow and no longer were able to fit through the canal's lock system. So they started to expand the canal to be able to fit these new ships. And with this expansion of the canal, many more jobs have been created, but many of these Panamanians were not able to fill them since they were so short of skill and education. The Panama Canal makes about $2 billion a year in revenue, and approximately $800 million goes to Panama's general treasury. Also, in 2016, new locks were opened, which were able to double the capacity of the canal and allowed for free flow traffic, which also accommodated the larger cargo vessels. And now, even more recently, they have been working on creating newer locks to allow for a third lane of traffic, which would increase their income on the canal.
Positive effects on the U.S. of U.S. imperialism. Like I said, the original goal was to show power and strength of the U.S. and how Panama was created, taken, and the canal was made. Panama was originally Colombia, and Colombia turned down or rejected the idea of the canal. So a Frenchman named Philippe Jean Benoit Varilla, I think that's how you say it, came to a U.S. general and said, I will pay for us to separate this land from Colombia, which is now Panama. We'll hold a revolution, take over it, make it its own country, and make them allow us have the canal. And they did exactly that. And the goal of the canal was obviously to show power, that's what the general wanted, but it now created faster shipping routes, so ships don't have to go all the way around South America, and they don't have to pay as much in fuel, so they can pay more on goods and stuff when they're trading. The Panama Canal also created many jobs for not only U.S. citizens, but many other people, and it spread democracy throughout Panama. Another effect the Panama Canal had on the U.S. after everything was built and after the fact is it brought a lot of power to the U.S., but not just the image of power. People didn't just think, oh, the U.S. has power, but they had a lot of power on the oceans when it came to trading with countries far away because the route was so much shorter because of the canal, so it brought power in that way. Some negative effects were there were a lot of deaths during this. Malaria and yellow fever were widespread when the Panama Canal was being built. According to hospital records, 5,609 people died building, but that's just hospital records. Many other people could have died, and it just not could have been recorded. That's just the canal, and then 22,000 deaths occurred when building the Panama Railway. The workers worked in really bad conditions for just 10 cents an hour. And another thing that was sort of negative, but not really, is the U.S. didn't just get this right. They had to buy it off of another French company, so that cost a lot, but in the end it ended up working out because we save money on fuel for the boats so they don't have to go as far, and we can use that money for more trading. Discussing the Panama Canal was a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. He says, I took the canal zone and let Congress debate. Then while the debate goes on, the canal does also. Here I think Teddy was saying that the idea of the Panama Canal caused a lot of controversy in Congress, and it preoccupied them. So while all the people in Congress were debating about it, he took the idea of the canal into his own hands, and he continued to build it while they debated it.